how industry is addressing this with concepts like Web 2.0, open platforms, cloud computer. So today's world is not anymore about having to see something in a commonality. So it's not the same things for the people. It's things specific for each of one. It's not about having a dedicated SDK in which you can only develop like you have on an iPhone. It's not about having to have access through some windows. It's about having access to your information through everywhere. So actually, I'm able to see the presentation over here. That's cool. But how are we going to address that? You know, the implementation of the solution is an implementation that we take to market, and before we were explaining, it's like a kind of a cocktail. It's a perfect mix between what we call MFP 2.0, that is actually our products. Those products that we already told you are secure. The platform, EAP, and our partners. But partners in a wide way. Partners in terms of software, the guys that develop the software broadly for the industry, specifically for some needs, and the guys that give service in order to implement those projects. So I don't spend too much time on products. Let's take a little look to EAP, that stands for Extensible Interface. And an interface is this, in the case of the product. Platform. So it's kind of the operating system that we are going to be using in our platforms since now and on. Obviously, these platforms are web standard, so we are not using any specific technology. Anyone that has some skills in terms of web development is able to manage it. We have put some services new on the devices. The first one is authentication, and you will see the reason of putting authentication. And the other one is presentation services. So we have created a device that until now was only looking to the internal controller, and now it's able to point outside. It's able to look to some other servers and display on the user interface some services. Why we want to do that? If we want to do it, obviously, we're going to use HTML, we can use AX.NET technology. Why we want to use it? We want to have this kind of interface. The main barrier for most of the people to take advantage of the investment they have done in technologies, people do not feel comfortable most of the times using technology. I don't know how many of you have been trained in order to use an ATM. I was not. So we are looking for this kind of development. And why we work over the presentation services, so the kind of information we display on the user interface. I've been a Nokia user for a long time. And this last Christmas, my wife came with a Motorola. So calling was okay, you know, receiving calls, making calls, even the agenda was working. But I was trying to send an SMS. It took me 45 minutes to realize how to do it. I'm not telling that Motorola is bad. I'm just telling that I was used to Nokia. So my slang in order to interact with technology was the Nokia way. I just gave the present back to my wife. I said, honey, you can keep it. I love it. But I can't stick to my Motorola. Just imagine that you have the possibility of integrate these devices and they talk in the same language of each of the employees. This is something that we can do. And how we can do that? How we can address it in a proper way. Being able to identify yourself in front of the device. This is what we are able to do using authentication services. And you know, if you know that I'm Jose Nevado, that I'm Spanish, that I'm from Spain, that I live there, rather than seeing the standard user interface, I can see something that is relevant for me. But it's relevant for me in some context. So just imagine the power that we can have. This is one of the biggest changes that we are going to address in the industry in the last 10 years. And being able to connect outside and being able to look for some other applications and being able to have everyone programming could make you think that this is going to become wild, wild west. But probably you may consider that those devices are not good anymore. So all the speech that in the whole morning Larry's been telling you probably could be no word. But you got to consider this technology is only placing shortcuts on this desktop. All the applications reside on a server. Those servers can be compliant with the same level of security that you have already implemented in your organization. And this is interesting. Let's make over here a clarification about it. It's like, obviously, web services are service-based. There is some other manufacturers that are working with Java. So they gotta install the application in each of the devices. That means that third parties, every time that you want to make any change on those devices, gotta go over there by device. It puts something in the controller that you are not controlling. So we are the only ones, in this case, that we can keep true security. The device is secure, and if you have your network secure, everything is solved. So that's absolutely true. I talk about partners, and I talk about applications. We have a partner program. We have different figures in this partner program. We have ISVs on the program, guys that are developing applications. They're solving some problems for the customers. They are enhancing the features of the device, the ones that we are not providing as a standard. We have some other kind of partners like system integrators. We have some other partners like developers. And they take care of some of the challenges that we face. And every time I face and I start talking about the partner program, I start thinking about Jose and Amadeus. You know, those two guys were kind of expensive for their parents. Those both guys went to piano classes. Jose is me, Amadeus is Mozart. And I can tell you, you don't want to hear me playing piano. So, choosing the right guy makes the difference. We have the leaders in the industry in each of the areas. We have all over Europe already engaged 75 system integrators. We have over 700 developers. So if you have any need, we can do it. But even more, the SDK is free. If you consider that it's something that you want to do internally because you don't want to have anyone have access to a competitive advantage, you can do it yourself. It's not difficult. We have a really well-documented SDK. So a device, you can go over there, you can present, and rather than offer you to copy, scan, and fax, can offer you to send some invoices in order to match the POs that are open in a procurement process.